the chief executive of NatWest Group, has resigned with immediate effect after admitting a serious error of judgment in discussing confidential details of Nigel Farage's bank account.
Yes, Dame Alison Rose stepped down early this morning following an emergency meeting of the company board, triggered by heavy criticism and pressure from the government. So
the bank, which is taxpayer-backed, has been under intense scrutiny since it was revealed that Mr Farage's accounts were closed due to his legally held political views. Let's go to the man himself, Nigel Farage, who joins us. And goodness me, this is seismic. But it's what you wanted, Nigel?
Well, it's what had to happen. I mean, the first rule of banking is you have to respect the privacy of the customer. You also have to respect the GDPR regulations. They were both broken very clearly by the boss of NatWest at that dinner that took place on the 3rd of July when she sat next to the BBC's business editor, Simon Jack. And frankly, when she was caught having breached confidentiality, she tried yesterday, supported by her board, to frankly lie her way out. And I thought the statement that came out at 6 o'clock last night, that the board retained full confidence in Alison Rose, rather reminiscent, isn't it, of the Premier League football club that's in crisis that says we have every confidence in our manager. I didn't think she could last beyond the end of the week. We have on Friday the half-yearly figures coming. There is an investor meeting at 9:30 that morning. So she's gone, and that's a start. But I have to say that Peter Flavel, who is the CEO of Coutts, has, over the course of the last few months, failed to even acknowledge 3 letters that I've written to him. Howard Davis, who, of course, describes himself as the chairperson of the NatWest Group, it was he that put Alison Rose in place. It was the board that sanctioned this culture, a culture that talks about diversity and inclusion and actually is very divisive. And in my case, as you could clearly see, pretty poisonous stuff. I think any board member that endorsed that statement last night, where they said we breached confidentiality, but she can stay in her post, frankly, I think the whole board needs to go.
Interesting, Nigel. So many things there. I mean, basically, she's saying, look, I'm in charge of NatWest. I didn't know the decision was from the boss of Coutts, nothing to do with me type thing. I'm looking at her resignation statement, and quite honestly, it's sorry, but not sorry. That's the way I look at this. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, right from the start. I mean, the first apology she gave was last Thursday, which was sort of a not me gov type statement. You know, I don't endorse the horrible things that were said about you, Mr. Farage. Well, actually, Alison Rose, it was you that introduced this culture. It was you that decided that NatWest Group would become not just a bank, but a moral arbiter, virtually a political organisation. And the funny thing, of course, about talking about inclusion is wonderful only if you agree with the prevailing view. If you don't agree, you are to be excluded. And that was the decision they took about me. And that's the decision that actually they've taken about many, many other people. The difference is I had the power to fight back, and I'm doing this. And this campaign, by the way, will not stop here. I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing it for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people all over this country who've had their bank accounts closed over the course of the last 2 years.
And that is the thing. That's what people have to realise. How it's you today, but it could be them tomorrow. And the interesting thing about her resignation note is that it doesn't even get to you forever. It starts off, I remain immensely proud of the progress the bank has made in supporting people, families and business across the UK. And it goes on, a lot of old guff that you read and you say, what's that got to do with the price of eggs? It's nothing to do about your track record at the bank. It's to do that you spilt the beans. Put simply, you spoke to a journalist with confidential information about a client and she badmouthed you. And if she wasn't, she hadn't got access to the full details and the knowledge, she shouldn't have been talking. She either knew about your account and the situation or she didn't.
Yes, I mean, none of this adds up. None of it makes any sense. But it was interesting, wasn't it, last night when she said, look, I did reveal he was a Coutts customer, but I didn't discuss the details of his account. Well, contrast that with what Deborah Turness, the CEO of BBC News, said. She said, not only did we get the original story from a trusted and senior source, but we went back the next day and double-checked it. So it was pretty obvious last night that either the BBC weren't telling the truth or she wasn't telling the truth. And the board of NatWest endorsed her position. That's why I say they simply all have to go.
Nigel, you've got the name, you've got the voice, you can blow the whistle on this, which you've done so incredibly well over the past few weeks. But as you say, going ahead, there'll be many, many people who have been debanked. Where do we go from here? Do you think there needs to be regulation in order to stop this? Surely that's what needs to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole series of anti-money laundering directives, and we all must take seriously the international drugs trade and that money that's laundered. But frankly, what NatWest have done is they've taken people from window cleaners to pawnbrokers. Anybody involved in a cash business, NatWest no longer want their business. And let's bear in mind, we put £45 billion of taxpayers' money into this bank to save it after its greed and stupidity was revealed in 2008. And in return for that, they've closed down most of the branches around the country. They don't want to take cash from small businesses. They have closed the accounts and I think we're running into tens of thousands. And you can't live or survive in the modern world without a bank account. You become a non-person. Banking is now an essential service, just like water. And for her to say, in this statement that she's proud of the help they've given to families and to businesses, it's quite the reverse. The whole banking industry culture has gone rotten. We need big changes in the law. And ultimately, what I want to get to with this campaign, and I'm not going to rest, I want to get to the point that we used to have where everybody in the country has a right to a bank account. It used to exist here until the post office was privatised. It exists in our neighbouring countries of France and Germany, and that is my long-term aim.
OK, so immediately as to what should happen next, that's your long-term aim. What do you want to happen next?
The government, being a 38.6% shareholder in this bank, along with other major investors, needs to appoint a new temporary board to take control of this bank. And then what we need to do, starting very early in the autumn, is to start to put in place legislation that says banks cannot and must not discriminate against individual customers because they support Brexit or they don't think that putting, rainbow flags on the front of the bank is right. That's the first step. And then we need to address the money laundering regulations that effectively have become a sledgehammer to miss the nut. It's the innocent that are getting hurt, whilst the big-time crooks still get away with it.
Are you frustrated by how long this whole process has taken? Firstly, to acknowledge the truth, that this was about your political views, not about meeting a financial threshold, and then how long it took to get an apology, and then finally, how long it took for Alison Rose to actually step down?
Yes, of course I am. And I was also, to be honest, pretty frustrated that it took Simon Jack of the BBC 6 days to apologise after I'd published all the information that disproved the original story that he was given. But I think the truth of it is they must have thought, look, we're NatWest, we're big, we're strong, we're powerful. I think they rather underestimated my determination on this.
And what do you make of the BBC as well? I mean, they actually held inaccurate information. As you say, it took 6 days to get an apology from them.
Yeah, I mean, Ellie, if you were spoken to by a very senior source in a big business with a huge story and you double-check that story, you would run that story, as any journalist would. There's nothing wrong with Simon Jack originally having put that story out. The painful part for me was I had to publish that 36-page vile dossier that had been compiled on me. I had to publish that, put it into the public domain to prove that actually this decision to get rid of me was political and not economic. And ultimately, again, you could say the BBC was slow to respond to the truth, but actually, I think, the statement that Deborah Turness, the CEO of BBC News, put out, I thought it was accurate, it was fair. And let's be honest, how many people have ever had an apology from the BBC? So I don't think the BBC now come out of this badly. I think Alison Rose and the NatWest board come out of it terribly.
What about the banking industry, Nigel? They're watching the consequences of what has happened here. It affects them all now, doesn't it?
Very much so. And I would address my comments, Eamon, to the 10 banks that have thus far refused to have me as a customer. Think again. This has happened to NatWest. Unless you change your culture, change your views, get rid of your prejudice over Brexit and other issues, then it could happen to you too.
Did you ever get your bank account sorted out? I mean, did you get looked after by somebody else?
No. I am not accepted by the UK banking industry with its current culture. It is a quite extraordinary state of affairs.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, but I presume you feel you will be now after what's happened today.
Well, I don't know. Perhaps they'll all be scared of me. I'm really not sure. But, as I say, it isn't just me. I have had the biggest inbox, Eamon, I've ever had in my public career. And, the fear, the horror that is coming through on these emails, people's businesses being destroyed because they've been closed down by a bank and it's taken months and months to open a new business account. This scandal has been going on for far too long, and I'm pleased to be the person that's blown the lid off it. And if we can get fundamental change and reform and a fairer system, then I really will have achieved something.
How does that make you feel?
I'm very proud to stand up and to be the voice for tens of thousands of people who have been wronged by these banks. This record needs to be set straight, and I'm utterly determined to do so.